It's one of those cold, rainy nights in Zhongshan. I came out to the local park after work because I had some things on my mind I wanted to talk about. There are many things I'd like to talk about in this channel. Mostly I just talk about the first things that come out of my mind for that day. And one of the things I want to talk about eventually, not tonight, is politics. Now, a lot of vloggers out there, especially here in China, purposely avoid the topic of politics. They say especially American ones, they say, oh, I left America to get away from all of that. I don't believe in that. As an American, I love politics. I'm definitely very much in it. I read about it. I have very, very strong opinions about it. However, I feel as though my opinions are quite nuanced. So I would like to talk about a lot that's going on back home in America, but not tonight. I'll save that for the future. But I do want to talk about something a little bit serious, and that is attitude. One of the most dangerous things a new English teacher can do when they come to a new country is get involved with the wrong crowd. But if you start listening to the wrong people, the cynical people, that can, especially when you first get here, that can greatly influence whether or not you're going to have a good or a bad time. I know an English teacher who's fairly new here in China, and his first few experiences here were not pleasant. They weren't bad, they just were not the best. It was he was expecting more than what he actually got, and sure enough, he actually deserved more than what he got. But to start with, that was not very good, and he didn't feel very welcome here. It was hard for him to make friends, especially with locals. He doesn't speak Chinese, nor do I, but you know, you really have to go out of your way to make those relationships happen. And your first couple weeks here, you know, it's like, ooh, wow, everything's amazing, and then you start getting a little lonely if you don't have those friends. So what you do is you go to the local pub, you know, the Irish pub or the British bar, and you meet some of the other expats. And you feel really good because it's like, oh, I have someone I can talk to again, someone who gets me. In many cities around the world, there are a number of expats no matter where you go. There's a small community, especially here in China. And in my little city, or my little town, I'm one of just a few. I know them and they're all great people. In Zhongshan as a whole, there's a lot more. And some of these people have been here for a long time. And they're a lot of fun to watch a football game with, but you know, they just have a bad attitude. They talk down about China. Many of them have Chinese wives and have been here for years, but they really have nothing good to say. So every time you hang out with them, it's just a giant bitch fest about their lives and every little thing that goes wrong in their lives. So if you start hanging out with these people when you first get here, you're going to fall into that trap. And that's a very dangerous thing to do, and it's very unfortunate because it's very difficult for you to change your mind and change your ways and climb out of that. But because you are lonely, you tend to flock to those people, you know? It's, you know, birds of a feather flock together, right? So this English teacher that I know is talking about leaving China, you know, screw China. You know, this isn't what I expected, nobody's nice to me. Chinese people are rude, and, you know, China's dirty, all kinds of, it's just one complaint after another. And that's quite unfortunate to hear sometimes. And if he wants to leave, have at it. But I try to reassure him, look, you know, it's not as bad as you think. This first few months can be difficult and different, but once you get the hang of it, it becomes part of you. You become, you know, you start living a life here, you build a life here. And the lesson is, like with everything, you get out of it what you put into it. I met the same types of people in the military. I know that they said, oh, the military is terrible. You know, they tell me where to go and what to do and when to eat and what to wear. And, you know, I hate running. Shit like that, right? Well, what the hell did you join the military for? What did you expect it was going to be? You know, you get all those people, oh, the recruiter lied to me. You know, they lie to you. I think you were lying to yourself. And the same thing goes with the international English teaching community. I think people lie to themselves. They think that they're going to sing Kumbaya with a bunch of kids and they're going to be sightseeing the whole time. They don't realize that it's a job, just like any other job. You've got a boss, you have customers, and you have to put in work, sometimes a lot of overtime too. I think it's called karma. I'm not quite sure if that's the correct word, but if you put positive vibes out into the world, you get positive vibes back. And especially, and I used to be a negative guy here and there and would complain about certain things. I think everyone does, that's natural. You just keep reminding yourself that if you put out negativity, you're going to get negativity back. And that's not just in what you say and what you do, it's how you feel too. So sure enough, this English teacher is now walking around complaining about every little thing that happens, not just at work but in life in general here. And of course nobody wants to be around that, so they're complaining about him. And so it's this vicious cycle of negativity, and you have to figure out a way to turn that around. The easiest thing is not to get involved in that in the first place, not to go down that path. But we are human, and sometimes that does happen. How can you, first you have to recognize that that's happening to you, but how can you turn it around after that? Well, I am far from an expert on this. I have no idea if what I say or do can have any influence, but I think it starts with one person being brutally honest, that tough love kind of attitude. Hey, this is happening to you. You need to recognize it. You can hang out with your cynical friends, that's fine. I have cynical friends that I love and I hang out with them all the time. The difference is I recognize when they are being cynical, when they are just talking out of their ass. You have to be smart and realize that what's happening to you is only happening to you, and what's happening to them is only happening to them. You have to be careful and not get caught up with that crowd. Don't listen to all the negativity that's out there, because there is a lot. Stick with the positive, and if there isn't any positive attitudes around, you become the positive attitude. You make it happen for yourself. There's that old cliche, you know, life hands you lemons, make lemonade, look on the bright side, you know, the grass is always greener, all that crap, right? Cliche things are there because to some extent there's a truth in it, and people don't say it just to waste their breath. They say it because it actually means something. So I actually got a hold of this guy. He came up to me and wanted to start complaining about things, and it was tough to listen to. I sat there and I listened to it, but it wasn't easy to listen to. And eventually I just told him, look, all of this stuff that you're telling me, all the things that are going bad in your life, you know, all the reasons for why you're pointing fingers at this person and that person, none of that really matters in the long run. That's something I've learned over the last few years. None of that matters. What he said to me, what if I go back home, told him I tried it and it was really this bad and it was because of this person, that person, that person? I said, yeah. Are they going to think that you're a strong person for putting up with it, for getting through it? Or are people going to think that they got the best of you? If indeed you decide to leave and go home, you move to another country, you at least tried it. That's more than anybody else can say, because that's more than anybody else actually does. No one's ever going to be able to take that away from you. When I told him that, something changed in his appearance. We kind of went, wow, you're right, I didn't really think of it that way. It all goes back to, you get out of it what you put into it. And if you put in hard work, you put in optimism, you put in positive vibes, that's what you're going to get back. If you do the opposite, you're going to get the opposite. I'm hoping for the best for this guy. There's nothing wrong with hanging out with your buddies, but you can't listen to everything your buddies, even if they have more experience than you, even if there's even a little bit of truth in what they're saying. You can't let that influence what you do and how you look at the world and how you approach your job, your relationships, your living situation. Everything is your fault. You're exactly where you are in life because of the decisions that you've made. I never used to understand that. Only in the last few years have I really come to realize that. All the mistakes, all the bad things that have happened in my life are my fault. All the good things that have happened in my life are a result of the decisions that I've made, maybe a little luck and help from others. China and Chinese culture, I'm still trying to figure out, but it's a very strange relationship between the individual and the group. You know, everyone says it's a communist country, it's a socialist kind of mentality here. And there's a lot of groupthink. You know, a lot of Chinese people think the same way. They look after one another. There's a lot of nationality and ethnic pride here. But at the same time, all you got to do is drive down the street or wait in line at McDonald's and you will see the individualistic side. It's every man for themselves. It's a very strange thing to witness that both of these things are going on at the same time. Here, the community that you have is a mixture of the other foreigners and your local friends. And each one of them is going to look out for you. But you still have to look out for yourself. And I'm not just talking about safety and civility. I'm also talking about your own mind and your own sanity, your own mental disposition. Because nobody is going to be looking out for that side except yourself. Remember, when the day is done and the work is done, you're in China. You're in the other side of the world. You can't get any further away from home without getting any closer. That's exciting, and I think people need to embrace that. I don't know, those are just my thoughts on the subject. I don't know, I might be talking out of my ass too, but I had to stop in my park and just spill my brain out to you. I have my colleagues, I have my students, but it's wonderful just to be able to spill out my thoughts as they come to me in this setting. And then I put it out for the world to see and the world to comment. Hopefully I've made some sense.